All right, so we were able to use one of these accounts to check how, you know, students can enjoy the benefit of a self-paced learning, right? That can make you learn on your own. And one of the benefits around that is that as Cisco improves on these course content, because you have an account with them, you have an update of those improvements as given by Cisco, as introduced, by Cisco. Of course, we should understand that technologies are getting advanced over and over, as the day go by, right? We're experiencing advancements in technology as the day goes by. So each of these advancements will also lead to new concepts, or concepts which are built on the existing concepts to ensure a secure environment, right? So each of these new concepts built on existing we can enjoy this, as a result of we having an account on the Cisco platform. All right, so that's for that. So we're just going to move into the first. We'll do an introduction into the first topic in the Computer Security Plus. All right, so we will look at after this introduction, we'll be exploring the lab environment, right? And in the lab environment, we'll see how to carry out exercise in order to ensure that we're able to lay our hands on tasks and exercises that we should undertake in order to grab full knowledge of a particular concept, right? So, for example, here in lesson 1, I've shown you all the lessons we'll be going through. That is in the last class. All right, so lesson 1 has to do with comparing security rules and security controls, right? Different roles in the field of cybersecurity. So when you come into this field, where you belong to, right? Of course, coming into a field, you start at the entry point, right? The entry point is coming in as an analyst. Okay, so from analyst, then we'll see several other level, right, that exist within the environment, and how we can, begin to climb the ladder up to becoming an expert in this field. All right, so today we'll be comparing security rules and security controls. And, we'll just do an introduction into this concept and we'll look at the lab exercise. Now, that lab exercise is also an introduction, right? Now, the introduction to that lab exercise has to do with what is expected of you to do anytime you gain access or you have tasks to do in the lab environment, right? So this will give you an hint to what you are expected to do as regarding the lab in this course. Okay, so we're just going to start by looking at information security and talking about the CIA triad. I believe we discussed this in the last class. All right, so, and I'll just use this opportunity to ask anyone of us present in the last class that can tell us what we discuss concerning confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Anybody want to tell us about that? Anybody? I have banana. Hands raised. All right, go ahead.
You said that it was the most important part of cybersecurity and that we always have to know it. That's all I really remember you saying. I don't have my notes with me, so
All right. Thank you. You tried. All right, I mentioned the importance of CIA, right? How important it is to cybersecurity. And I explained that for every security infrastructure put in place by an organization, those infrastructure should be able to uphold this tried, the CIA tried, right? All security infrastructure put in place should be able to uphold the CIA tried. Now, if it's anything short of that, right, then it means you don't have a secure environment because measurement, CIA is just a yardstick to measure how secure your environments are. So I still need, I don't mind if any other students can tell us about what confidentiality is, what integrity is, and what availability is. Anybody? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Anybody? All right, good. So I have Oluwatoyin hands raised. All right, go ahead, Oluwatoyin.
So basically, confidentiality means that information has to be confidential, that it has to be secure. It has to be available for the people that has authority over it, that has
Okay,
access to it. And integrity basically means that if I send an information to someone else, I should be confident that exactly what I've sent is what the receiver is getting.
very good. That's correct.
And availability is when I need my information that I have access to, I should have access to it.
Oh, correct. Thanks very much. That's a good one. All right. So that's what CIA is all about. So please, from now on, anytime you begin to use platform, web pages, right, applications, these are what you should look out for. You know, these three things ensures or make you know whether that particular platform you are making use of, web page, applications, or digital solution that you are using, it helps you see whether it's secured or not. Those are the things you look out for, right? Privacy of your information, upholding confidentiality, right? Then data being delivered as sent without no modification, integrity. Then ability to access your information or data at any time it's needed. That has to do with availability. All right, so we also talk about non-repudiation, and this has to do with a means of tracking an activity to a user or a subject. All right, so in access control, we have terms of subject and object used, right? The terms of subject and an object used. So subject here means the user. Object has to do with the resources being accessed. All right, so non-repudiation, the concept is focused on being able to trace an action or activity to a subject such that the subject cannot deny creating or modifying that data. So, all right, so for example, if you approve an action or a transaction, you cannot deny you approving or not approving that transaction or that action. Of course, an attacker can they can hijack information about you and approve an action. So it will still be traced down to you. That's why security is very important. So for example, if I have an account, let's say my email, and I send a mail to an organization requesting them to deliver a good worth of a particular amount to a location. That's an order from my end. I can't deny that I've not initiated that action, even though my account has been hacked by an attacker, and the attacker is the one giving the instruction. But I will still have to bear the consequence. Why? Because the message is generated from my end. All right, so it could be a company account which have been hijacked, and since it's been hijacked, the attacker can lay an order, and the other company respect that order because it's coming from a business partner, and they go ahead with the order and deliver whatsoever has been. This is called non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means by which a subject cannot deny creating or modifying data. All right, so moving away from that, we are going to be looking at cybersecurity framework. Cybersecurity framework. All right, this is very important. Now, these frameworks generally gives steps, processes, procedure, policies, best practices that a user or an organization follow in order to ensure a secure environment. All right, so I'll take that again. Cybersecurity frameworks, we have a lot of this framework and a lot of users, a lot of organizations following in details these frameworks. So later we are going to be looking at each of these frameworks, differences between them, and why some organizations prefer a particular framework over the other. But generally, framework gives us steps or process, procedures, or best practices to carry out or to implement a secure techniques in our environment. All right. Now, for example, as we are here now, if someone throw a call down to you and ask you, can you help us ensure security of this or that? Asking question about how you can help the organization, right, to be secured. What can you do? A framework is the best solution you can ever make use of to ensure that even professionals in the field of cybersecurity follows this framework. These frameworks are given by standard body. These frameworks are given by standard bodies, which have put a lot of consideration in place before giving steps and processes or best practices that user or an organization can follow. All right, so in this framework, we have processes given. One of the process, the first of the process has to do with what? Identifying. All right, so for example, you want to secure an environment. Now, you need to be able to identify the risk, the threats that exist in that environment. So we have an office that is performing a task or the other, and they use digital devices to perform their task. They needed to be secured. So what can you do to ensure that they are secure? First, you need to identify what risk exists in that environment. All right, so the first process is identification process. Now, moving away from that, we'll move into the protect. Of course, when you are able to identify risk, threat within that environment, then you can now go ahead and put measures in place to protect. All right, so when you protect, the next will be to dictate. Now, I'll explain the difference between the two. Protection is putting in place measure to block or to reduce those risk or attack within your environment, right? You put in place measures to reduce the risk or attack within your environment. Now, the fact that you put in place measure to reduce or to stop these attack or threats within your environment doesn't mean that you should go and sleep. Why? Because attackers are not sleeping. Attackers already know, or they can see that you have put measures in place, protocols to block them, appliances to track them, a lot of things to fish out presence of an attacker, an intruder. All right, so they are not sleeping. The attacker, they are not sleeping. They are also looking for means to bypass those security measures put in place. Now, if you look at this diagram, it's pointing to the fact that some attacks are from internal. So meaning that some of the employees that are working within the organization are also looking for ways to outsmart the organization. So that's why the point of detection is very important. So detection means where you continually monitor your protection techniques that you have put in place to be able to see if peradventure an attacker breaks or bypass those protection techniques. So when an attacker is able to bypass, then you detect, oh, there's a flop here. We have an intruder within the organization. This is very, very important, detecting. And this is where our first role comes in as, a cybersecurity personnel. This is what our first role focus on. Focus on how you can detect a risk, vulnerabilities, or threats in our environment. All right, so apart from detecting, the next is, once you detect that there is presence of an attack, then you respond, right? You respond. Respond by tracking the attack, containing the attack, so that it won't extend beyond the point where the attack has gotten to. So let's say, for example, within an organization, the attack already, we have already 2 devices compromised. How can we ensure that the attack doesn't spread beyond those 2 devices? That's responding, right? All right, so these are tasks and processes laid down by frameworks. I tell you, for each of these, we have numbers of write-ups, a lot of information in order to identify. And that's what we're going to be doing in this course. We'll be learning how to identify threats in our environment. What and what should you look at when you are trying to identify? What do you do to protect? How do you detect? What are the steps or processes to respond? Then after responding, we have the recover. So recover is when you are able to bring some of these compromised devices back to work, right? You're able to bring them back to work, and everything now return back to normal. All right, so now the frameworks help us to understand that we have internal threats and external threats. So this framework also are put in place to guide against both this internal and external threats. All right. Okay, so we're going to move from there into information security competencies. All right, so what's this all about? Information security competencies. All right, so this has to do with what you as a cybersecurity personnel should be competent to do, right? At the end of this course. What are your competencies, right? What should you be able to do at the end of this course? Number one, you should be able to assess risk and test. Assessing risk and testing. All right, so risk assessment is very key in the field of security. As a matter of fact, this can even form an entire job for a person in the cybersecurity environment. What I mean by that is we have some, all they do is just risk assessment, assessing risk, assessment of risk. So it's very important. At the end of this course, you should be competent to assess risk within an existing environment or a new environment, right? A new domain. All right, so risk assessment, we're going to treat that later, right? We'll look at what and what we do in order to ensure proper assessment of risk. Number two, specifying, sourcing, installing, and configuring secure devices and software. So as cybersecurity personnel, you should be competent in configuring, installing security solution, security devices, softwares that will, ensure a secure environment. Also, access control and user privileges. That's also very key. Access control is a means through which organization can control how users access data and information. Then privileges are permission granted to user within an environment. Notice that everybody in an organization will never have the same permission. All right, because we have levels, we have cadres within the organization. Some are at the top or management level within the organization, while some are at the bottom level within the organization. So the privilege given to those at the top talk about supervisors, manager, those that are part of board members, and so those at the top level, right? They are privileged. We far be higher than that of the lower, those at the lower level of the organization. So what we are saying here is that you should be able to control, right? It's one of the competencies of security personnel. Auditing logs and events. Now, what this is all about is logs. They are records of activities, of events that takes place in an environment, right? So as we begin to transact business within an organization, all these processes are being logged. They are logged for security purpose. If something goes wrong, we can go through that log to see what and what went wrong at a time. For example, in the previous slide, we talk about detecting, right? After protecting, the next is detecting. How do we detect? We can detect through log audits, right? When you begin to log, audit the log, then you can see some malicious actions, right? Or moves within your environment through logs and events of things that are taking place within that environment. So you should be able to understand how to audit log. All right. So also we need to be competent in incident response, reporting and response. Incident reporting and response. Now, in cybersecurity, incident is an adverse action that can halt a normal security or technological process, an adverse action. So whenever you hear the word incident, it means something bad, right? So you should be able to report this incident, that is, lay down channel of incident reporting and how to respond to these incidents. So how do we do that? Of course, you should, the incident would have been projected ahead. What I mean is that in an environment where you know there are a lot of risk, you should be able to project worst case scenario if this thing should go on like this. For example, if an attacker gain access, so what's the worst case scenario that can happen? Let's say in the banking sector, the attacker can transfer money, right? They can begin to transfer money in the banking sector. So how do you report this? Immediately you notice. So channels of reporting are put in place. Then how to respond to that, to stop that. Those processes are already projected ahead. The next is business continuity and data and disaster recovery. Business continuity. All right, so this also has to do with moving. It's just like an advancement over incident. An incident can be so bad that it may want to ground the entire business. So business continuity is measures or processes put in place to ensure that business continue even when there is a disaster at hand. For example, disaster are categorized into natural and man-made. So, for example, if it's a natural disaster, let's say fire. So let's say the entire company got burnt down. So what are the plans put in place to ensure business continue even when such situation occur? That has to do with business continuity, right? All right, so the next is security training and education program. Now, in this field, you can't say, well, I'm not good at teaching. No, you can't say that, because the environment where you are protecting, you need to educate users within that environment about their uh, their way of handling things, You may be a very good or the best security professional out there. If you don't know how to educate or train users, you will see that all your hard work put in place to ensure a secure environment can be pulled down in seconds. Because if the users of these security infrastructure put in place don't have good knowledge of how to operate around that secure measure put in place, they will just open you up and even render all your hard work useless within short period of time. All right, so we should be able to, one of our competencies are being able to train or educate users about attacks that are prevalent in a particular environment and what users within that environment should do. All right, so we'll move from there to looking at information security roles and responsibility. What are those roles available, right, in information security? All right, so information security is just same thing as cyber security, right? All right, so because information security has to do with protection of information. Cyber security also just has to do with protection of information. All right, so whenever I begin to refer to information security, note that we are also referring to cyber security. All right, so the overall responsibility, right, at the top of the security roles are the chief security officer. They oversee entire infrastructure, processes and tasks, users, employees, which are used to maintain secured environments. They put in place infrastructure, approve of and improve security techniques. They approve of and improve security techniques within an environment. The next is the Chief Information Security Officer, right? So in the ladder, at the top is the Chief Security Officer. Then down the ladder is the Chief Information Security Officer, right? Which is also at the top position of the cybersecurity roles. Then we have the managerial, those are supervisors, right? So the junior officers. Then we have the technical, and that's more of where we belong to at the end of this course, right? At the technical department, and we operate as an information system security officer or an analyst, right? Yeah, an analyst able to, analyze or detect, basically trying to detect presence of an intruder within within an organization or within an environment. Then we have the non-technical. All right, so they are also at the lower level, right?
Hello.
Which also perform.
Hello, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Real quick, sorry to interrupt you. Who is IMISI? This is Obinawachukwu. Who is IMISI, please?
Good evening, sir. My name is Imisi.
Okay. All right, thank you. Who is John C? Who is John C? Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. John C is Chebido.
John C. All right.
John C is Chebido. Good evening.
All right, thank you.
Chialo.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Johnson is Che below.
All right. Okay. So we'll just move on from there. And we look at the due care or liability. These are also seen at the lower cadre of the information security environment, non-technical, right? They don't have to do anything that has to do with detection, right? But yet still relevant within the security environment. For example, if you have a security man at the gates, right? Every organization have that. A security man at the gates, right? It's a non-technical, but still relevant in still relevant in the cybersecurity environment, right? They are performing a role, of course. If they are well trained, an attack or intruder can be detected just at that point of entrance. At that point of entrance, we can detect an attack or an intruder right from that point. All right, so moving away from that, we'll go to information security business units. All right, so the business unit starts by looking at the Security Operations Center, SOC, Security Operations Center. All right, so this has grown to be a very big platform when it comes to cybersecurity. For example, you see enterprise, big organization have their own SOC center, right? Which focus on deploying security infrastructure to ensure that their businesses, that enterprise businesses, are well secured. But now it's a big business unit because we have some small and medium enterprise organizations that cannot afford to set up a security operations centers. So we have SOC center operating as a third party organization to different, small, medium enterprise, right? So it means though some organizations are not big to the point of setting up, because the SOC center, it's put in place a lot of security infrastructure to ensure that an organization have a secured environment. All right. So, okay, so SOC Center is at the top of Information Security Business Unit, a very, very big point in security that ensures that intruders or attackers within an enterprise can be tracked. All right, so development security operation. Now this more like combining three different roles together. Development, this has to do with developers, right? Application developer, that focus much on softwares, right? Programming and some other things related to development, application development. Then security, this has to do with professionals in security that understand protocols, that understand security processes, to put in place to ensure that you have a secure platform. Then operation, this has to do with business operation. Some understand operation of business. They can tell you when you perform this task, the next thing you need to do is this, right? They can analyze a business operation for you. So this is when we have, three different roles combined together to ensure that you have a secured environment. Let's take, for example, in an hospital, if you are deploying security solution to an, in an hospital, you need a developer. You need a sound security expert. You need a doctor or a medical practitioner that understand well medical processes, how things are done, right, within that environment. So that's what DevSecOps is all about, right? Development, security, and operation. All right, so moving away from that, we're going to be looking at incident response. All right, so we talked about that earlier on. This has to do with means through which organization put in place to ensure that they respond effectively to an incident in order to curb this incident, or in order to ensure that the incidents don't further spread beyond the point where the incident has spread to. So we have different names given to these incident responses by different organizations, different tasks and procedures also attached to each of these. So one of these is the CIRT, the Cyber Incident Response Team. So in some organizations, you can have CIRT. These are group of personnel that responds to incidents, right, when it occurs. Now, these personnel can belong to different departments, but based on, okay, based on, okay, so based on the type of incidents at hand, we determine those professionals in place which are to attend or respond to an incident at hand. All right, so before we continue, let me ask if anyone have question to ask regarding what we are talking about, please. Please, at any time the class is going on, you have something that you are not clear about, just feel free to use the reaction button by, raising hands, right? Just raise your hands, and an audience will be given to you. We want to ensure as much as possible that you understand fully what we are discussing. So if there is anyone that have one question or the other to ask related to what we have just discussed so far, please go ahead and ask. Anybody? Just raise hands and go ahead and ask a question. All right, notice that we are giving opportunity to you to ask questions. If you don't ask questions, there will come a time where we will ask questions from you. A lot of people think taking remote class is a way of shying away from questions or interactions or things like that. If you understand the way the class has been structured, you should know that in this type of class, that's never possible. As a matter of fact, the class will be as interactive as possible, such that your name can be called to answer a question. As a matter of fact, that's one of my mode of training, right? I like to call specifically the student by name, right? Asking them questions about what has been discussed. All right, so this helped me to know those students that are following and those that are not following as expected. Of course, we know we cannot have the same level of intelligent quotient, right? That is, the way we understand things can never be same. All right. So please, if you have questions, feel free to use the reaction button by raising hands. An audience will be given to you, and your question will be entertained. All right. Okay, so we're just going to finish up on this, and we will look at, the lab process, and that will be all for today. All right, so we have discussed about the CIRT. So we have the CSIRT, Computer Security Incident Response Team. All right. So this has to do with also professionals, security professionals that respond to incidents, right, within an organization, which has to do with security of computing devices used within that organization. Then we have the Computer Emergency Response Team, right? So these they are the points of ensuring that devices are being attended to as fast as possible. Now, what I mean by that is that we may have servers within our business environment. These servers respond to requests by our customers, right? So we may have 3 or 4 of these servers. At a point, one of the server can just go down. Now, that one server going down is going to, the load of traffic that one server attempts to will be shared on the 2 or 3 other servers that are remaining, increasing their load. So the Computer Emergency Response Team are those that respond to that emergency that takes place on that server to ensure that that server is being revived and put back to operation so that it will not overload the other devices with huge traffic. All right, so that's that for this session, and that's all about information security roles. We've looked at several of these roles: Chief Security Officer, CSO, CISO. We look at the managerial, technical, non-technical, and we talk about incident response, right? Looking at different roles of incident response, the CIRT, the CSIRT, Computer Security Incident Response Team, and Computer Emergency Response Team. All right, so we'll look at several of these roles. Okay, so before we just go tonight, we are going to look at exploring the lab environment. Now, we are not performing any exercise on the lab, but we want to see how the lab environment looks like and how it is expected of us to work with that lab and the environment of the lab. All right, so that's just what we're going to look at now. Okay, so if you remember, I think I showed this earlier on, right? How do we access the lab? How do we access the lab? Okay, so accessing the lab is so simple. So all we need to do is to log in to we log into CompTIA site, which is login. All right, so that's it, login.comptia.org, right? Of course, as we have said, the lab is on the cloud, hosted by CompTIA. So to access the lab, we need to use this URL, login.comptia.org, right? So once you put that in your address bar, you press enter, it's going to show you the interface. Then you sign in with your username and password. So my username and password already inserted there. All right. So now I'm signed in to my lab interface, right? Lab environment. So all I need to do now is to scroll down, right? Yeah, so this is the hands-on lab, right? Access your training and the CompTIA labs. So I'm going to access that through CompTIA labs. I'm going to click on that. So it's going to load straight down to the lab. So inside the lab here, I have a couple of labs subscribed for. So the one we're working with is Security Plus. So I'm going to click on that. And this is where I have the SAT Master Lab for Security Plus. Now, if you scroll down, this is where we are exploring the lab environment. So as the topic has been listed for us before now, so as the lab designed for each of the topics for us to explore and to get sound knowledge of the concept we have discussed earlier on. All right, so now the first we are going to work with is this, right? So this is what we're working with, exploring the lab environment. So if I click on this, now notice it's loading the lab for me, right? It's loading up here, the lab. All right, so there's no much task here because we're not going to do any technical security exercise here. Or this just want to introduce us to how the lab environments look like, what is expected of us to do within that environment. In a couple of minutes, I'll be, I just want to show us around there. Then we are going to stop the class there, entertain your question, right? We'll move into the question and answer session. Then we'll call it a day and meet in the next class. All right, so let's just hold on a few minutes. I have about 1 minute, 20 seconds for the lab to load up. Now, what's going on now? CompTIA is trying to prepare, connect me to several of the virtual machines which are set up to be used for lab exercise, right? Within their data centers. All right, so in 1 minute, the lab should be ready. Okay, we're almost there. Almost there. 30 seconds. Okay, so now, if you remember, we discussed that each of us are going to have access to this, right? What you are expected to do on the field are what you are carrying out in the lab. So when you are finishing up with this course, you are as good as ready to undertake task within the cybersecurity field. All right, so now this is look at the screen. The lab is sectioned into two. We have where the virtual machine is and where the task is. So this is the instruction we are to carry out on this machine, right? We have the instruction here. We carry out the instruction on this machine. All right. So we'll start. Okay, so there's someone raising hand.
It's
Oluwatoyin,
just
please go ahead.
yes, sir. It's just the table of content that I'm looking at on my screen.
Oh,
Is it
good.
network or
Thank you for your observation. Thank you. All right, so that's fine. So okay, so we should be able to see that now. So this is the table of contents. And after clicking on the first one, this is what we have. It's loaded up to this page, right? This page. All right, so now on this page, this is where we have the virtual machine. And this is where we have the instructions of what to carry out on this virtual machine. So look at the instruction, the resources to use, and the help, right, made available for us while working on this lab. So we'll move over to instruction. Whatever we need to do here, we'll be instructed here. All right, so let's just go through it. So the scenario, in this activity, we want you to get familiar with the system you'll be using in the course activity. All right, so using the lab interface, in order for you to complete most of the labs in this course, you will use one or more virtual machines, which are hosted in the cloud platform. Each VM works very much like a physical computer, but you access them using your browser and internet connectivity. So the main thing to remember is that your Windows Start key will work on your own computer, not on the VM. Now, this is the virtual machine. If I press the Start key here, now it's working on the host, not on the virtual device or virtual machine. So that's what this is pointing us to. So we're going to take a few moments to familiarize ourselves with the features of the lab's browser control. All right, so here, number one says, in this pane, select the Resources tab heading. When you have reviewed the Resources tab content, select Instruction tab to follow the steps again. So they want us to go through what we have under Resources, right? Look at, these are different virtual machines available for you to use. The DC1, the RT1, the MS1, and the username and password for you to access all of those is given here. Then the drive available, the Ethernet for network connection, right? Connectivity on those devices, and other machines including Linux 1, PT1, Kali, RT2, ISP, and RT3. So the instructions say after going through this, we should click on instruction back. All right, now if you look at it, the task I'm undertaking here is being monitored. I am at 0%. All right, so as I begin to read through and I begin to perform the task given, I will be checking this to indicate that I've performed this task. Notice that the progress, right, begins to increase as the task continues, right? The progress begins to show up. So number two says, looking at the instruction tab again, notice that each of these tasks has a checkbox, right? This is the checkbox, right? Okay, that records your progress. So if I check this, it shows I'm 5%, right, into the completing the task. Number three says, select the help. This is the help. Then select the instructions. Help is for us to go through what we have available under help, right? Then go back to instruction to view the steps again afterwards. So you can use help page to get assistance with technical issues and view more advanced information, right? Finally, notes the timer counting. All right, so if you look at it, this is the timer. So every lab, you don't have forever to work on the lab. Why? We have millions of people all around the world connecting to this lab. So you can't just be granted unlimited access. So you have limited time for you to perform that task. All right, so you have that for a limited amount of time. So please plan accordingly. If you run out of time, you can always launch the lab again. So aim to complete. There are two types of lab, assisted and applied, right? So assisted lab should be completed in 15 to 30 minutes. So if I go back to the table of contents, notice it says assisted. This is an assisted lab, right? Assisted lab. So if you go through, you see an applied lab, right? So that's the difference between the two types of lab, right? Assisted and applied. Applied is when you need to apply one task or the other. Assisted gives you instruction to follow. All right. So now I've completed that task. I'm going to check it. All right. Okay, not checked. Okay, I'm about 7%. So now it asks, look at the pin containing the VM. This is the VM pin. At the top left corner, select the display icon. The display icon looks like this at the top left. Can you see the display icon? And select full screen. So if I click, notice I have option. One of the option is full screen. All right. So it's filled up, right? So this will allow best visual, right? It allows maximum possible screen resolution for the VM. Okay, so I'm going to check this. I've done this. So if you are using a Windows computer to access this lab, press the start key. So on my Windows computer, I'm pressing the start key. Notice the start key is working for my host device, not the virtual machine, right? All right, so notice that the activity of the task on your PC is taking effect on the keys. So in some browser, this might also cause the lab environment to exist full screen. So I'm still in full screen here. So if I click, so what that means is that when I press the start key, in some of the browser, the full screen might get exited. So they just want you to know about that. All right, so I'm going to check this. The next is I have to click on this lightning icon, this lightning icon. So if I click, look at, it's going to give me menu to send start key combination to the virtual machine. Now, if I need to type anything on this virtual machine now, right, I need to activate this to send some key. If I just press start on my keyboard here, it's not going to affect this virtual machine. So what will affect it? I'll click on this. If I select the control or delete, notice it sends an information to the virtual machine, and the virtual machine is requesting for password. All right, so I'm just going to check this, and I've done that. Okay, so the next is select the control or delete. I've done that. In the instruction, disactivate the sign on the Windows VM. All right, so I'm going to check that. And the next now says, now that you are familiar with the lab interface, let's look at the guest VM you'll be using. Select the next. So this is the next button. Right click. This now explore different Windows VM, right? Different virtual machine. Notice that the one I'm connected to here, the name is here, MS1. So apart from MS1, I have the DC1. Then these are the username and password to access them. So at each point of the activity, you may be asked to switch between virtual machine, right? So how do you switch? For example, I'm on MS1. If I'm asked to switch to DC1, I can just click on this. Once I click, it will switch. Can you see? Please wait while connecting to that DC1. Now, this is a DC1. DC stands for domain controller. All right, so domain controller 1. So this DC1 is a different machine from this MS1. MS1 stands for member server. Okay, so this is how I will begin to follow the instruction, right? Follow the instruction one after the other and carry out the task on this virtual machine to ensure that I complete the process. Now, after completing the process, you have to look at this instruction very well, because those are what you should learn in lab exercise, right? In the lab exercise, to ensure that you gain understanding of the practical aspect of the course. All right. So, so once you follow through, then you move to the next, which is the PT1 Kali. Then the next, identifying appliance VM, until we get to the end, right? This is the end of the applied, right? You follow it to the end, carrying out the instruction, and with that, you'll be able to perform all the tasks expected to be done within the lab. And after that, once you finish, you will have an option to submit. When you submit, you will be graded. Can you see? You'll be graded. Now, I didn't submit this, so that's why it's still showing 0%. Other ones which have been done and submitted are showing, the percentage given per time when you carry out tasks on the lab. For example, I can do this again now, and I may not get 100% if I don't complete the exercise and processes within the lab. All right, so that's for the lab environment, and that's where we're going to be stopping for tonight. We are going to give opportunity for us to ask questions as regarding roles, competencies of information security that we've discussed today, and the lab exercise and the lab environment we have discussed. If you have any question to ask us at all related to our discussion here today, or anything in cybersecurity, we're in this question and answer session now. All right, good. I'm seeing Reds hands raised. Okay, go on, Reds.
Hi, hello. So my name's Rex. Yes, do you hear me now?
Very well.
Okay. So I took this class because I don't have I guess a lot of time, I think, so I rely a lot on the videos after they're posted to go over what's spoken about. And in one of the videos, I heard someone mention something about getting email access, get things being sent to email, and I've never gotten anything via email before. So I just want to make sure I'm not missing out on anything, because and also, so that's one. And then also another concern I have is, I guess, with the labs and things, how do we sign up for them? Also another question I have, because going through it, you said it's easy, you just log in, but I'm like, how do we gotta log in and how do we sign up?
All right, good. Admin Emmanuel, can you please respond to that?
Right. Yeah, just a quick one in respect to the emails. You're not missing anything. You receive if we're sending emails to people, you're also going to receive that, as long as you apply, you fill the form, registration form, we have you in a database, so you'll be able to receive that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if you've ever sent an email to people, I've never received any. So that's
No.
Okay.
I know. We haven't.
Okay.
All right.
And then the other thing, I guess, with signing up for the lab in order when,
lab.
yeah.
Okay, so a detailed instruction on the usage of the lab will be given when we are introducing students to using the lab. Now, what we've just done today, we are not expecting you to carry that out yet, right? Good. This is just an introduction to the environment. When the time comes for students to, carry out the hands-on, right? Now, detailed instruction on how to go about this hands-on exercise will be given right here, right? So
Okay.
you don't need to bother about signing up. Nobody is signing up for anything. For now, we are going to give you, right, all that is needed for you to access the lab and carry out this exercise. Does that answer
Okay.
your question?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. All right, so any other person with questions regarding our discussion or whatsoever that has to do with this course, anything that has to do with this program, please feel free to go ahead and ask questions. Any question? Anybody? This is the time to ask a question. Something not clear to you? All right, so in the absence of that, I think I'm going to hand over to Admin Emmanuel. If there are one or two other information to pass across, please, you can help us do that and dismiss us for tonight.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lashley, for that wonderful session. So just would like to encourage us. I know there are a lot of people that just onboarded, and some people this might be your first class, but be rest assured, the class recording will be provided, and just like someone said, we'll be sending out the class invites, rather the Zoom login. So it's the same link, all right, we'll be using across board. So if the link is being changed in the future, we'll also notify you, but it's the same link. So once we send you the link, please make sure you have that in your repository and you can log in, once the class time. And if you have questions, you can actually, drop it in the platform or reach out to another facilitators. And the record will be provided as well once it's ready. Okay. So thank you everyone for making it, and enjoy the rest of the night.
Okay. Okay.
You have a question?
How do I, if I want to get in touch with Mr. Olajide on a personal level?
Okay, so we'll make that available. Mr. Olajide will send a message to the group chat.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your night.
You too, sir.